we wanted to talk about based on our own experiences and our passion. And so obviously I had to go somewhere global, somewhere international. So what I wanted to talk about is what does it mean really to be globally minded or international minded? And I went into the IB Learner profile, of course, because that's where a lot of us base what we do every day on. And one of the things mentioned in what is an IB Learner is that the purpose is to develop internationally minded people who recognize their common humanity. So what does that mean to be internationally minded? That's what we need to understand. For me, I think that it can be defined in many different ways, and there's different ways to get to being ultimately global-minded. Ultimately, the answer comes in that it all involves work. It's not going to happen by accident, and it's not going to be easy. It's something that we all have to work at, and there is no end. There's no final saying, I finally got there, the answer has been reached. One clear way to become a global-minded person or an internationally-minded person is to spend some time living in another country. That would be one of the ways that I really think that you can get there the easiest and get the most bang for your buck. But again, it's not going to just happen. Just by showing up in another country and spending some time there doesn't mean, okay, I've made it. I'm globally minded or I'm internationally minded. It still takes work. It's something that we have to work at. So I want to tell you a little bit about my own experience and how I got there. I grew up in Wisconsin, in a small town in Wisconsin, and I was fortunate to have parents who helped us see the world. There was not a whole lot of culture where I came from, not a whole lot of ways to experience different people and different ideas and different things. But my parents got involved with working with exchange students from the time I was about 9 or 10 years old. So from the time I was a young child, I really got to meet and live with people. We hosted different students at our house and really got to see that kids are just kids all around the world. One thing that always struck me from a really young age is I would look at these kids who came, they were 15, 16, 17 years old, kind of a small town, Wisconsin, USA, to learn about what it was like to live in our country, and just the sheer braveness of leaving everything they knew behind, leaving their family, leaving their school, their friends, their culture, their language, their food, everything. And I looked at all these people, all these kids, and I thought, I can totally do this. Why am I not doing this? So I made a decision early on that I was going to go on an exchange program. Everyone I talked to, I knew people who had mostly gone on month-long programs, summer-long programs, and I thought everything I kept hearing was the same from all of them. It wasn't long enough. I would just get used to things, and then I came home. So I decided, and I was the first one that anyone I knew had heard say this, but I decided to go away for a year. So my sophomore year in high school, January of my sophomore year, I went to Peru on an exchange program. Now, I can honestly tell you, still to this day, that was the first month in Peru was the hardest month of my life. Everything was new. My family was new, my house was new, the food was new, the language was new. Everything that I did on a daily basis was new to me, and I had absolutely no idea what was going on around me. This was before the internet era, so I had no way really of finding out a whole lot of information before I went. I went based on library books from the Sheboygan, Wisconsin Library, which were published in the 1970s. So I didn't learn a whole lot about Peru that was real before I actually went. I had never met anyone from there or who had gone there. Now my language level when I went to live in Peru was I had finished Spanish 1 and half of Spanish 2. Any of you who've taken a language understand how little I knew some words, I knew a little bit about what conjugating meant, but I really had no idea. To give an example, within my first 48 hours of arriving at my host family, there was a whole lot of conversation, something about the playa. Cool, we're going to the beach. I got the playa. I had no idea where was the beach, how far away was the beach, how long we were going to the beach, what were we going to do at the beach. Was it fun at the beach? I don't know. So I packed my bag with a towel and a swimsuit, and I got in the car and we went on this about an hour-long trip to La Playa. Turned out to be a 3-day trip to the beach, for which I had a towel and a swimsuit. Perfect. Live and learn. That's when you learn to ask some more questions and maybe learn some more vocabulary. Learn vocabulary. That's the key word. I remember distinctly on my drive home from the beach, 3-day trip to the beach with one swimsuit, that I remember thinking I have 2 choices right now. I still had 356 days to go in Peru, and I thought I could go one of 2 ways. I could spend my year making as many mistakes as possible, asking as many questions as I could, being interested and truly learning everything I could possibly learn every single day. Or I could take the path of just trying to blend into the background, not make a whole bunch of fuss over the fact that I didn't understand, and just try not to get in anybody's way. I do know a lot of students who have gone and lived in other countries, students who were on my own program with me in Peru, that chose the second path, to just sort of blend into the background and not make a big fuss and try to just go get quietly through and make it through your 352 days remaining. I chose the first path because I realized that it was much more about these students who took the second path. They did learn some Spanish. I don't think it's physically possible to live for a year in a country and not pick up some language. But learning about culture and learning about being internationally minded or culturally minded is about so much more than language. The words are just the surface area that are going to get you to where you need to be an open-minded, globally minded person. What I got to experience in my year in Peru was regular life. The highs and lows, the ups and downs, the goods and bads of just ordinary, mundane things in the day-to-day typical life. To this day, I'm not a really great tourist. When I travel places and when I go around to visit different cities, different states or countries, I don't like to just do the touristy kind of things. I much prefer to be able to experience life. What is it really like to live here? What is it really like to have to go grocery shopping and to get through the day-to-day things? What my main thing that I took from my year abroad and what I still try to live to this day is to be an interested person, interested in learning as much as you can, and to be interesting, have something to offer, have something to add to the conversation. So I think about how would my life be different had I not had parents who encouraged me to go live in Peru, or had I not taken that path. I really think that because I was so interested from an early age on really learning about the world, that I probably would have gone somewhere else some other year on some other program. What I did learn is that asking questions, which has been a common thread in everybody's speech today, is really what it's all about. It's about knowing how to ask questions and knowing that there really aren't enough questions. You can't ask enough. One of the things I did to help me learn my language the most is I really didn't use a dictionary when I was in Peru. If I didn't know a word, I talked around the word to make sure that I could get my point across. If I didn't understand what people were saying, I just asked a lot of questions until I did understand. People might think that seemed frustrating, but it was actually the best way to learn as much as I could. I also think about the difference in foreign students coming to this country, coming to maybe Chandler High School or a place like this. When I went to Peru, I was the one that everyone wanted to know. I was the superstar. Everyone wanted to know me. Everyone wanted to meet me. Everyone wanted to sit next to me. Everyone wanted to walk home with me. Everyone wanted to take me everywhere. It was pretty awesome. I think that often people coming here don't get that same experience. We get so wrapped up in our lives and so wrapped up in what we already know that we don't necessarily open our minds to including somebody different or something different. I try to parent the same way that fits in with all of this idea. Back to the IB Learner profile that talks about creating common humanity. Ultimately, it's not about being global-minded, it's about being human-minded, realizing we're all down to the core, we're all people. My kids have had the opportunity ever since they were 2 and 4 years old to come with me every summer to work at a Spanish immersion camp. Now they have been able to live every summer surrounded by multiple languages. There's 13 different languages where we go every summer. And they just sort of accept that people who speak different languages and do different things are just the normal. They don't realize that it's anything strange or anything to notice. This past spring, I had the opportunity to take my girls to Spain. We actually stayed with somebody who was my foreign student in my house when I was 12 years old. And we stayed in her house for 2 weeks, and we got to experience just day-to-day regular life. And one day, my youngest daughter looked at me and said, "Mommy, this is just like being at home, only all in Spanish." And I realized at that moment that she gets it. Without realizing that she gets it, it's just life. It's about learning that everyone around the world has the same challenges and same things to encounter. I try to talk with my kids all the time and incorporate into everything we do to be interested, always be interested in what other people are doing and saying, and be interesting as well. Have something to add to the conversation. So ultimately, living abroad to me is an unnatural experience. It's something that I hope everybody thinks about fitting into their lives at some point. It's a way to experience real life in another country that you just can't duplicate, no matter how many videos you watch online or how many books you study. I have been communicating recently with a former student of mine who's currently on an exchange program in Ecuador, and I asked him via email last week if he could give me an idea of something to talk about, and here's what he wrote me. probably one of the best decisions I've made. He and I talked a lot about going abroad and actually experiencing. Open your mind up to actually learning as much as you can. It sounds like that's exactly what's happening, and it thrills me to know and to hear that. So my opinion is clear, obviously, that I hope that you think about taking time, making the time, fitting it somehow in your life. Now, I, as a protective mother whose kids are getting to the age where they can actually go do this, it's a scary thought, thinking about putting them on an airplane and sending them off into the world. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't encourage them to do that and held them back, and I certainly won't, although I will cry all the way home from the airport. But I hope that they go do amazing things. One thing is, if going and living in another country isn't something that ends up happening in your lives, I do want you to realize that you can't use that as an excuse to not be globally minded or internationally minded. Because again, it's really just about being human-minded. It comes back to being an interested person, always wanting to know what makes people tick, and interesting at the same time. Have something to offer back. Ask questions and know that you don't always have to have the answers. The more questions you ask, the better, more well-rounded person you're going to become. And be the one who truly wants to learn from people sitting next to you, from people around you. Seek out things to learn from others. Give yourself a chance to experience what life is like in someone else's